Okay, let's talk about something you've probably seen 1,000 times. Those long, white lines that airplanes sketch across the sky. What is really going on up there?
Right? Sometimes they vanish almost instantly. Other times they hang around for hours, spreading out until the whole sky looks hazy. So, what are they? Well, depending on who you ask, the answer is either really simple or it's the tip of a massive hidden conspiracy.
And this is where you've probably heard the word chemtrails. It's a theory that says those lines aren't just an accident of flight. Nope. It argues there's something deliberate and very secret. So the core idea here is that this isn't harmless water vapor. The theory claims it's a huge, covert operation, spraying chemicals for all sorts of reasons. Everything from controlling the weather to, well, even controlling people. And look, this isn't just some fringe idea on a forgotten corner of the internet. A pretty big chunk of the population, we're talking up to 40% in some surveys, think there might be something to it. And that alone makes it worth looking into and checking against the actual evidence. So when you actually ask the experts, the atmospheric scientists who live and breathe this stuff, the answer is pretty overwhelming. In one survey, 77 of the top scientists in the field were asked if they'd ever seen any evidence of a secret spraying program. The result? 76 of them said no. So if it's not some secret plot, what is really happening? All right, let's dive into the science, because science has a different name for these trails, and the name itself is the biggest clue. Contrails. Contrail is short for condensation trail. The easiest way to think about it is like seeing your own breath on a really cold day. A jet engine spits out hot, wet exhaust. At 30,000 feet, the air is incredibly cold. Think minus 40 degrees Celsius or colder. When that hot, moist air hits the freezing cold, the water vapor instantly freezes into billions and billions of tiny ice crystals. What you're seeing is just a man-made, line-shaped cloud of ice. Now, this one simple explanation actually answers a lot of the common questions. Like, some people claim these trails are a new thing, but actually, they were first recorded way back in 1919. They were even a big deal in World War II. They're not new at all. They're just way, way more planes in the sky today. Okay, so why do they sometimes last for hours and other times disappear in seconds? It all comes down to the humidity up there. If the upper atmosphere is super dry, those ice crystals turn right back into invisible vapor. Poof, gone. But if it's humid, the ice crystals stick around and the trail persists, spreading out into a wispy cloud. This also explains why you can see two planes flying near each other, but only one is leaving a trail. The atmosphere is like a layer cake with different conditions at different heights. A plane at 10,000 meters could be in a perfect, cold, moist layer for making contrails. But another plane just 1,000 meters below it might be in warmer, drier air where they just can't form. And what about those weird zigzagging patterns you sometimes see? That's not a pilot flying crazy. That's the contrail, which is just a line of ice crystals getting grabbed and twisted by powerful high-altitude winds and jet streams. The wind is literally smearing them across the sky. So yeah, every weird thing that seems to fuel the chemtrail theory, it has a pretty clear, documented explanation in basic atmospheric science. The lines are just ice. Case closed, right? Well, this is where the story gets really interesting. Because even though the lines we see every day are just ice, it does make you wonder, is anyone, anywhere, seriously looking into the idea of deliberately spraying stuff into the atmosphere to mess with the climate? And the answer, maybe surprisingly, is yes, absolutely. But it's not a secret conspiracy. It's a very public, very serious field of scientific research, and it's called solar radiation modification. And I mean, this is not some fringe science fiction idea. In June of 2023, the White House, yes, that White House, released an official research plan on this exact subject. It was a plan mandated by the US Congress to figure out the science, the risks, and the rules around these kinds of ideas. So what is SRM? Basically, it's a whole category of proposals for geoengineering the planet to cool it down. The big idea is to make the Earth a little more reflective, like a giant planetary sunshade, to bounce a tiny bit of sunlight back into space and hopefully counteract some global warming. There are a couple of main ideas being floated. One is marine cloud brightening, where you'd spray sea salt into clouds over the ocean to make them whiter. And then there's the other big one, stratospheric aerosol injection. And that one probably sounds a little familiar. Yeah,
Stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, is the idea of flying planes really high up and releasing tiny reflective particles, like sulfur dioxide, into the stratosphere. And we know this works because nature already does it for us. When a massive volcano like Mount Pinatubo erupted in 1991, it blasted sulfur into the stratosphere and cooled the entire planet for a year. But, and this is so important, this is all just research right now. Computer models, lab work, it is not being deployed.
Now, this research isn't just happening for fun, it's happening because we're staring down an absolutely terrifying dilemma. A future where we might have to choose between two very different and very scary types of risk. This quote from that White House report says it all. It's about risk versus risk. The risks of deliberately messing with our atmosphere, they are huge and scary. But the risks of unchecked climate change, the heat waves, the droughts, the collapsing ecosystems, are also huge and scary. So scientists are trying to understand the risks of intervention so we can weigh them against the very real risks of inaction. And let's be crystal clear, SRM would be a terrible solution. It's like a planetary painkiller. It treats a symptom, but not the disease. It would do nothing to stop the CO2 that's acidifying our oceans, and it could have its own catastrophic side effects that we barely understand, like screwing up the monsoons that billions of people depend on for food, or tearing a hole in the ozone layer. So what began with simple lines of ice in the sky brings us to this almost unbelievable choice. The trails we see today are just contrails, but the real research they get confused with presents a question straight out of science fiction. As our planet keeps warming, how do we decide which is the bigger gamble? Deliberately tampering with Earth's climate, or letting our accidental tampering run its course?